All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bar Prep 101. Hope you guys are having a great Friday so far. Excited for today's session. We're going to give, everybody a few minutes to mosey on in. Okay. Let's do a couple of icebreakers in the chat, see who's in here so far. Let's start off in the chat. What schools are represented in today's session so far? What schools are we in, graduating from? Colleges of Law and Santa Barbara. Love our Colleges of Law students. We had a nice big group of Colleges of Law students in our last bar prep. They loved it. We loved having them in there. Good to see. Yep, another Colleges of Law Ventura. Awesome. Southwestern. Hey, Madison. Good to see you. Chloe, Mississippi. All right. UWLA. Okay. Trinity Law School. As we start to get more of the schools, where are we at? I know this event can attract a lot of students in different situations. I think majority of us might be 3Ls, but we might have some people who are repeat takers, might be 2Ls, might be 1Ls. So yeah, where are you at in your journey? We got Chloe, 3L, coming from North Carolina Central. Okay. June 2025 grad. I see. Okay. Shirley last year, May 2026, just tested and passed the NPRE. Congrats on passing the NPRE. Let's keep that energy up. Okay. Let's do one last little bit, of an icebreaker. I think we had a little bit of detail as far as what you're going to get out of this session. But yeah, like what are you expecting out of this session? What are you looking forward to the most? What do you want to get out of this? What kind of is that, that bit of information that you're still seeking to get at this stage of your bar prep journey? Study schedule, how many MBEs a day, mixed or individual, how many essays, when to memorize the rules. Okay, so I want clarity. Expectations to be in order to be successful with the program, our commitment in days. Great question, Alex. That's a big part of what today is about. It's just expectations and clarity as to like what we can do now and in the future to just make sure we're successful and we enjoy it. That's the whole benefit of having these early conversations. So I love that. Expectations. Chloe said tips and tricks, how to help with time management. Good. Okay. So, yeah, that's about 5 minutes. We got a nice full room. So, let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. And again, just the intro here, super excited. Let me go ahead and start the screen share. Today's session, again, this is for the early bird gets the worm, right? Whether you're taking February or July, you are all here getting some information to put you in a position to be successful. And those are my favorite types of students, right? Those are then the easiest and most enjoyable journeys that are had because, yeah, you're not procrastinating or waiting to the last minute. So this is Bar Prep 101. Let's jump into it. And that we will do straight into what are the habits of passing students. Like most things in life, there is a recipe, there is a way to get the results you're looking for. And after 10 years of doing this, right, at this stage, these are the things that you want to be considering. Number one, choosing the right bar prep, paramount, right? It's like choosing the wrong weapon in a fight, right? Choosing the wrong, cooking method. If you're in a cooking competition, like everything can come down to just making sure you have the right company that aligns with you. Next, maximizing the pre-prep period. Also very important. Let's not do nothing. And let's make sure if we do something, we're doing something that actually is transferable. And then lastly, which is some mindset, expectations for when your 10-week period does start. I need you to be all in on bar prep, right? No matter where you're at, what company you go with, you got to be all in. All right, let's go ahead and break each one down. Choosing the right bar prep. All right. So some of us might know which direction we're going in. Others could be like the man in this picture and at a crossroads and trying to figure out where to go. And that's okay to be in that position, but there's also some easy ways to figure out where you need to go. So here are what passers do. Okay. Number one, they find sample materials. We're going to talk about this a little bit more at the back half of this session about the importance of the materials of the company you choose and whether they're effective and whether they align with your learning style. If you cannot digest the material and the way it's provided to you, well, that's a big problem. Next, they talk to passers and non-passers for each company. So be a little resourceful there, right? At this point, it's pretty easy with a little bit of due diligence to find some people who took programs and what their experience was. And the reason why I say passers and non-passers is that, I think whenever you have passers, it's always easy to kind of say, yeah, I had a great experience. I passed. Sometimes they'll still get into the depth of what their experience was. So I think it's just also beneficial to balance that with how did the non-passers feel? What were their opinions, right? And then you could take the two of those and form your own thoughts. Lastly, what pastors do here, talk to representatives at each company you're considering if you can. So companies like Legally Fit and some other companies, you could actually pick up the phone, right? Email us and talk to a representative to get your questions answered, to figure out more about the philosophies of the program and how it works and get all those questions answered. And if you can do that, definitely take advantage. All right, so that's what the pastors do. A big part of this whole section, we're going to also talk about what the non-pastors sometimes do, right? Or otherwise, what we're going to call here the common mistakes, things to avoid. So we have choosing blindly with little to no research. We have following others and then going with the free or low cost option. These are somewhat related. Like you could have a student that could literally do all three of these, right? It's like, oh, my school included, X bar prep company and everybody else is doing it. And I didn't do any research, so I'm just going to go along and do it, right? So they can all come together, or you could just lean into one of these alone. And the reality is you just simply don't, right? There is a lot on the line here, right? This is now the gateway to you starting your career, practicing law and being an esquire. And so you just don't want to take lightly, again, choosing the bar prep company that's going to get you over that hump. And the reality is that like, if as long as you're going with a respectable bar prep company, like sure, there's a chance that you can pass with that company. But why not make sure in this phase you are aligning yourself with a company that's going to give you the best chance? Because I promise you, right, if we can, we want to avoid being in that repeat taker cycle. It ends up being about a year that you're in that, assuming you do pass on your second attempt. So, whether it's your first attempt or this is now your repeat attempt, it's like, let's nip this in the bud and be done with this next exam to, again, be over with it. So those are your common mistakes. The takeaway from this section, the right bar prep isn't about what's cheapest or most popular. It's about what actually works for you. So again, I just want to challenge you all. I know a lot of people in here are Legally Fit fans, and a lot of you all will be signing up, but we also open this up to just being valuable for people who are still in their decision-making process. And I challenge you that no matter where you go, just make sure you take proper steps in choosing. Don't let bar prep be chosen for you. Don't go with the one that just your friend went with, right? Take control of that decision-making process. All right. And by the way questions will work, if you have any while we're going through this presentation, please write them down. The presentation won't be too long, and then we'll open it up to Q&A at the end. So as questions come up as I'm going through these things, feel free to write them down. All right, so now let's talk about maximizing the pre-prep period. So if you are taking the July exam, That is, again, you have a lot of pre-prep period, right? You have all of this semester, all of the rest of this year, the top of next year before you start your 10-week period in May. If you are taking the February exam, you still have a pretty good pre-prep period. You still have all the time between now and December, right? And so again, what we're going to talk about here is not only do we want to utilize this time, we want to utilize it effectively. So what do pastors do? They do start early. In this day and age, with what pass rates are across the nation, there just really isn't any reason to not start early. Do something, right? It doesn't have to always be a lot depending on your circumstances, but you always want to be doing something early to, again, give yourself the best chances to pass. Next, and this one is super, super important to me for students, identify weaknesses and fill large gaps. We'll talk about this a bit more, right? But this to me is one of the most important things to do in maximizing your pre-prep period. You want to avoid any type of just passive early start, right? Sometimes you might be taking an on-campus course. Sometimes at certain schools, these are really, really effective. Other times they're not. And the reality is you'll be able to tell as you're going through that, you'll yourself feel like, am I really moving the needle? Am I addressing my weaknesses? Do I feel like I'm growing, learning, right? So again, some programs are top notch and others sometimes fall a little short. So you have to assess if it's working for you. And ultimately, what you're looking to do in your pre-prep period is figure out, hey, what were my big gaps with the law, right? Was it con law? Was it contracts, property law? Some of those subjects we barely got buy-in, right? And then how about on the skill side? Am I notoriously and like have traditionally struggled with essay writing or multiple choice? Do I even know what a PT is? Right. So these are the questions you want to ask yourself. And if you have any large gaps, you want to fix them now. Because guess what? If you fix all your large issues and then you get to your 10-week actual bar prep period, you're now able to just go through bar prep and elevate and really just focus on constant daily growth. But if you walk into your 10-week prep period with these large issues, that really eats at your ability to stay on schedule with your course and just overall feel good about your progress because you just have this big nagging issue or issues that you're working through the entire time. So that's the logic there. And if you do all of these things, the reality is that you're actually working in a way where you're taking pressure off of that 10-week study period, right? The reality is I didn't make the system. I don't like it, but we have to operate in it. It makes no sense why we have to learn 13 subjects in a 10-week study period, right? But that's the history of how this works. If your bar prep is in February, if your bar is in February, you start studying in December. If your bar is in July, you start studying in May. But we want to start studying earlier and taking pressure off of that because that is a pressure cooker of a period to cover all those subjects and all those skills. So let's talk now about the common mistakes that we don't want to make. Doing nothing during pre-prep. Okay. And I get it. Some of my repeat takers were beat up by the bar exam. We're a little, mentally defeated and we're just like not ready to get back in the saddle. And I understand that we got to find that motivation and that energy to do so. So again, we can get over this. For my 3Ls, right? I know we're dealing with a little bit of that senioritis. All right. We're kind of feeling a little beat up after 2 years of law school. But again, nothing is going to be more empowering and awesome for you than passing on your first attempt. So find that energy to do something that's moving that needle. Let's talk about the next two, right? When we have students who are statistically in situations where they need to start early in order to pass. So if you are planning on working during your 10-week study period, you have to start early, whether that's full-time or part-time. And if you are starting early, the question is, how early do I start? Well, it depends on a lot of variables of how much are you going to be working and how are your skills and your understanding of the law in addition to that. So it could be you need an extra 2 months. It could be you need an extra 4 months. So those are the conversations you want to start having if you're planning on working. And then my students who had a lower GPA in law school, one, don't be defeated. Even with the low GPA, you can pass the bar and you can pass it on your first attempt. But we have to approach it strategically of, okay, there was something that went wrong in law school as to why we got the low GPA. Let's make sure we are addressing those gaps in the law and the skill before we get to our 10-week period. And again, we have to start early. How early? It depends on the individual. Okay. So again, working students, lower GPA from law school, make sure you have the mindset of I am starting early. Takeaway, start early and focus on intentional building blocks versus inaction or passive preparation. Okay, break each one of those highlighted parts down. Intentional building blocks, something that's transferable, actually taking pressure off of the 10 weeks, identifying weaknesses, working on them, versus inaction, right? Nobody should be doing absolutely nothing. And then the next thing to look out for is passive preparation, where again, you're just doing something early where you're going through the motions and it's almost just a waste of time because it's not moving the needle. Awesome. All right. The third here, right, is you have to be all in on bar prep. Okay. It's like many things in life, any big goal, big challenge, right, that you are taking on. If you are 1 foot in and 1 foot out, it's going to be hard to get that goal. And the bar is not an easy feat, right? So, in order to pass this thing, you really got to be 2 feet in and set up your mindset, your lifestyle, and all of these things to support that. So, let's take a look at what this looks like. First off, what do passers do? They do the work. As simple as it may seem, right? A lot of times that's not the case for people in bar prep. And when I mean do the work, literally just doing the assignments, checking the boxes. Yes, I went through the video. Yes, I did my practice essays. Yes, I did my practice multiple choice. What's the challenge there? It is a lot of work to do, right? You are going through a ton of practice multiple choice questions, about 2,200 during your 10-week period. I want you in my program to do 100 essays, right? You don't have to write all of those out, and I detail exactly how you do those 100, but I want you to touch at least 100 essays. So there's all this work to do. And again, one of the first things I like to ask students when they didn't pass, they come to us, whether they took us or another program, it's like, okay, like what were let's look at, what you completed. And that's always the first, reason why I believe a student is not going to pass. You didn't get enough experience, right? You didn't do the work. Next is do it properly. Okay. This is right the difference between showing up and showing out versus just showing up and I'm just there, right? So do it properly is, yeah, I did my 100 essays and I was locked in. I did it in a way where I actually learned the lessons. Not doing it properly is simply doing the work, but you're just glazing over the questions. You're not soaking up the lessons. You're just checking the boxes just to say you did the work. All right. So again, that looks different on what doing it properly looks like versus doing it improperly. And lastly, on what pastors do, they trust the process. The reality is that your bar prep company is going to be leading you through the dark on a very challenging experience, right? That 10-week pressure cooker of bar prep is going to feel daunting. And at times it's going to feel scary to just keep trusting another person, individual, company to guide you through this. That's exactly what you have to do. Because what happens is students will panic and they will deviate from their program. And then that's now when you're off track. And now you're in no man's land and you're creating a high risk that you don't pass because you're just winging it from that point. So the big thing that I want to just address here at this early stage, again, first off and foremost, again, choose the right guidance, choose the right leader to walk you through so you have something that you trust to begin with. But then once you're in it and you're in the thick of it, make sure you remember that, hey, this person is the one I chose who has gone through this, has helped other people through this, and I'm going to stick to what the plan is. A common example of that would be something as simple as in week 1 through 5, I'm telling my students not to focus on memorization right now. That will come. And there's a reason why we're doing it that way. And you have a student that's like, well, nope, I'm going to focus on memorization right now. You're not trusting the process. It feels like you want to, so much law, but again, that's going to create other problems. All right. So, what are the common mistakes? Pretty much just the inverse of what we just talked about. First and foremost, not putting in the hours. Okay. It's like whenever I have a student who just simply didn't put in the hours, that's the first and foremost thing. Like, we don't have to overthink it or like, oh my God, I have such an issue with this or that. It's like you just simply didn't put in enough time. All right. So, we don't want to put ourselves in that position. The next one I want to talk about, which typically affects doing it properly, is having too many distractions during bar prep. All right. And so you have micro distractions, what I like to call, and then macro. Micro distractions are like on the day to day, right? I have the TV on while I'm studying. I have social media up, while I'm studying or checking it every 5, 10, 15 minutes. I'm studying at home and home studying doesn't work for me. I'm always going to the fridge to grab a snack, right? I'm always going to the bathroom. Like this is not a conducive work environment. If you have all those micro distractions on the day to day, this makes a huge difference on, again, like what you are able to retain. So we got to make sure we have those handled. Macro distractions. Macro distractions are things like relationships, family relationships, romantic relationships, friend relationships. If those relationships are taking away our ability to focus on bar prep, we have to fix that and address that, right? So we don't want those things, again, to just be so prevalent and so top of mind with issues, or maybe not even issues, just attending birthdays and events. All that stuff needs to take a back seat during this 10-week period, right? Everybody has to sacrifice a little bit during that time. Outside of relationships, other macro things could be, pets, right? Pets are a daily thing, big thing that like takes a lot of our time and energy. So figuring out some pet assistance during that 10-week period can make the world of a difference, right? Any big life changes, right? Get those handled. If we're getting married, right? If we're moving out of state, that requires a lot. Like all these things, like try to handle it before or after bar prep, not during. And then lastly, and again, we talked about this already, don't deviate from the program. Again, the road is going to get bumpy, right? But stick to the program. Don't deviate. Don't go into no man's land trying to figure out bar prep and the process on your own. We will talk about the importance of making adjustments, right, during bar prep if something is not working for you. But again, find a program that's going to help you make those adjustments. So therefore, now you are still under the guidance and you're not technically deviating, right? As opposed to just on your own saying, I'm going to just do something different. All right. What is the takeaway here? Bar prep done right is not overwhelming, it is empowering. And this is something that we really stand on at Legally Fit. That was my experience. And that's what I aim to bring to all of my students is that if you are doing the work, you're doing it properly. For those that need to start early, you're starting early, right? You're just handling everything. This does not have to be an extremely stressful and overwhelming process, but in fact, it can be empowering and to some extent actually enjoyable. But what is the reality for most students, right? Let's say you're just a 3L, right? It's like there's just a default bubble of anxiety around the bar. Everybody's just feared or fearful of not passing. And that's just like the MO. People like to be fearful of this exam. Um, and so we're in that fear bubble, and we don't really do much with it. We don't start early, we don't get ahead, we don't do anything to actually take away from that. So then we might even end up still just procrastinating and just kind of being in this fear mind state until our 10-week period. And then it's like, oh my gosh, we're finally here. And you're just in that frantic state. So everything about what we do and how early we do it, it's about taking control of this experience, doing it right. And then you start to feel good because you feel the needle moving, right? Kind of like going to the gym, right? When you start seeing those pounds shed 1 pound at a time and you're in that groove and it feels good, that's what we're trying to get in bar prep as well. All right. So that ends that first section, right, on those three. So now we're going to move from the habits of what passers do And now we're going to get into a little bit more on choosing your bar prep and what matters the most, because right now, that's what a lot of us are doing, figuring out which company we're going to go with. We're going to hyper focus on materials, strategy, and support. But before we do, I want to first give you a message of, right, like at the end of the day, as mentioned, most reputable bar prep companies can get you over the hump, but it's about figuring out the best one for you. So with every comprehensive bar prep, and you see here some of the top names that you might be familiar with. Take a look on the right-hand side in the corner, top right corner. These are all the things you're going to get with every company. And these are essentially the most important things. You have bar released essays and sample answers. You have bar released PTs and sample answers, and you have NCBE released multiple choice questions. NCBE is the company that makes the multiple choice questions that you take on the day of the bar exam. So, first and foremost, most of every bar prep company is, in fact, the bar provided resources that students then have to work with. Now, here is where you have your company created resources, which then obviously have some difference in, how they're delivered or their style, etc. You have lecture videos, right? A lot of time is spent watching videos to learn the law. You have outlines with bar ready rules. And I do want to address this one briefly in this session about rules and various companies. The reality is, everybody, is that there is no rule book adopted by the bar exam, right? And so there are varied ways to present rules. And the idea is that you just want to kind of stick with the general rules that are acceptable. And every single reputable bar prep company is using the body of acceptable rules. But I believe some students have the notion that, like, oh man, like I want to use the rules that everybody else is using. And maybe let's just say Barbary, right? One of the longest standing companies, like they have the rules that everybody is going to be using. And I think the rules in Quimby, Legally Fit, right? Themis, some of these newer companies might be different. And the reality is that they won't. So yeah, that's just like a myth buster there that, certain companies have rules that are more widely accepted. To me, the way that you want to look at how rules are presented by the company, and we'll talk about this in a bit, are two things. You're looking for consistency in the rules when they're provided to you, and you're also looking for structure, right? I think you can have the same exact rule and it encompass everything and have everything, but the rule can be structured in a way that's, one, easier to remember for the student and also easier to read for the grader, but it's still the same thing, right? Saying the same thing, but in a different way. So yes, that's rules. Moving on. Companies will also create, not only just have the bar released questions, but they're additional hypos and practice questions. And they'll create their own sample answers to essays and PTs. And the reason why companies create their own sample answers and essays to PTs is because most of the bar released sample answers are actually student product from the bar exam, and these are considered high passing scores, but they're not always perfect. So those are always good to use, again, as the bar showing, like, hey, this is a very good work product, but it's not always perfect. So you also want company provided sample answers to kind of give you what the ideal would look like. All right, so as we wrap up this slide, as we see at the bottom, the message is, yes, every company has the same core resources if you're dealing with a reputable company, but the question is, how effective are they? And in reality, you can even ask, adjust that question into, how effective are they for you? All right. So yes, let's go ahead and break each one down now. First one, the materials, why it matters. 90% of bar prep is spent using the materials of the company that you choose. You have to then choose materials that are easily digestible for you, cleanly organized, and easy to navigate. This is what helps with progression and long-term memorization. All right. Most of your time in bar prep, and there's really not too many ways around it unless you are a repeat taker and you've done it once before, majority of your time is spent on videos and outlines. right? Not all of it, but a majority of it. So if you are working with a company where their videos just don't work for you and the way that their lecturers deliver information, if you're watching a 6 hour video and then you still have to teach yourself everything within that 6 hours that you just learned, that is where then you start to run into timing problems with getting everything done. So yes, that's then the importance of choosing something that, again, what I'm saying is digestible. Also look at their outlines. Sometimes outlines are just very hard to read and they're not presented in a way that works for your eyesight and how you like to digest things. So all those little things matter because yeah, outlines are going to be by your side every single day of bar prep. So that's why it matters. Okay, I lost my cursor. Next, we have common issues with materials. Materials are inconsistent. All right. I'm not here to bash any other company. I won't name anybody by name. But what I will tell you is that there are companies that have inconsistent materials because of how they built their bar prep. Some of the bigger companies will simply independently contract out to various people to build their bar prep instead of either a single person making the materials or a collaborative team making the materials. It's like, I want Billy to make the contracts lecture video, and then I'm going to hire Michelle over here to make the contracts outline, and I'm going to hire Rebecca to make the contracts essay workshops. Well, those three people won't work together. And so the idea is that you will, in fact, see, well, Billy had offer with 3 elements, but then Rebecca had offer and her rule statement had 2 elements. Both are acceptable, but now as a student, I'm forced to choose which one I'm going to go with. And that can be a burden when you're seeing that time and time again for 13 subjects. So you rather have materials that are consistent to make your life simple there. Next, outlines are excessively long with no prioritization. This starts to come into now the strategy of your bar prep company. And are they just like throwing the kitchen sink at you just to be able to say, all right, everything that we could think of that could be on the bar exam we gave to you was there, right? Or are they being a little bit more strategic in giving you the material that's tested the most? So that way you have a prioritization on that material. And then you're able to, in the moment, handle maybe some of the one-off things that are tested. But what happens so often is that students don't have a sense of prioritization during bar prep. And they spend so much time on the things that maybe could be tested, right? Get tested once out of every 4 or 5 years. But all the time focusing on those rarely tested concepts took away from a deep, strong understanding of stuff that we see every single year. So that stuff we're not knocking out of the park and then therefore not passing. So a big part of our strategy is that you got to start with what I call the jacuzzi, right? The hot topics. And first and foremost, get those down. And then afterwards, we can use resources to put in as much of the cool topics, right? The not so hot stuff, and get as many of those in as we can. And then lastly, as mentioned, the lecture videos can oftentimes be boring and ineffective. Me personally, I do not respond well to like the traditional podium style, dry lecture delivery where it's somebody just simply reading off the rules from the outline. And so that is definitely what we have aimed to change in Legally Fit. So let's get into how Legally Fit does our materials. We have live class recordings versus podium style. So when you're watching our lecture videos, it does create this experience, and first and foremost, that you are in a live class because it just has that feel. And so it feels interactive and engaging. There's questions posed that you then could take a moment yourself to think through and answer, and things like that. One of the hidden benefits or hidden values that some students enjoy is that like it's just enjoyable to watch because it almost becomes like a TV show for students where it's like, oh, there's the characters of the live class, like Michelle's going to say this or there's these questions, but it just gives a little bit of life to what you're going through, again, as opposed to simply me sitting here and being like, all right, offer, here are the 3 elements, next rule, here are the 2 elements, etc. All right, next we have our outlines are condensed and prioritized. I won't go into much detail, but the value is there. We took a lot of time crafting our materials. to be really prioritized so you know where to spend your time. Next, our materials are consistent. Every single material was made by me. I might have had some assistance in making some of the things, but everything went through me as a final check to make sure everything is consistent. Rules are always consistent. Structure and organization is always consistent. So again, putting you in the position where you just have to do the work and you have less headache. Next, Legally Fit has a unique folder system, right? This is a big part of Legally Fit is our unique folder system. This is one of those things that's not the easiest to describe, but once you're in it and you see it, you can see the value of it and it's irreplaceable. And so our folder system, in a nutshell, the description would be, is that this is our step-by-step guide for how to navigate up and down from the big picture of a course to the tiniest of detail, and being able to walk that line back and forth to where now you have a deeper understanding of the law. You know where every single thing goes in every subject. And then once you adopt the folder system, it turns into this super tool for issue spotting on essays and multiple choice. And again, the intrinsic value is you now also have this confidence with understanding that subject and where everything goes. So that's our folder system. The proof is in the pudding, right? So you can go ahead here and take a quick look at what Dante wanted to share with you all regarding our materials. And you can just hear a little bit, again, what a student has had to say about them. But also, we want to give you all the opportunity to see for yourself how good our materials are. So if you scan that QR code, and we'll also email out the link to you if you're driving or doing something and you can't do that right now. But this link will give you access into our portal to be able to see things like our schedule for bar prep, our outlines, our lecture videos that we're talking about. So yeah, you don't have to be in the blind at all as to what your materials are going to look like with Legally Fit. Okay, highly recommend you check those out. All right, next, strategy, why it matters. Bar prep companies actually vary in their approach and philosophies on how to properly prepare students for the bar exam. It's imperative that you choose a company that aligns with your learning style, okay? And so, yes, this is like, if I was a fitness coach, it's like, yep, I want you to do all cardio. That's how we're going to do this and, lose some weight. Or I want you to lift nothing but weights every single day. And that's how we're going to do it. So in bar prep, there actually are different philosophies and approaches. And again, good to figure out what they are for the companies that you're considering. Common issues, in my opinion, are going to be that a lot of companies use imbalanced approaches to learning versus practice, right? There's like two sides of the extreme. There's companies that like spend all your time in watching videos, reviewing outlines, and just reading outlines, right? And then there's companies on the other end that spend all your time just doing practice. Well, the issue with both of these is that these really go together. If you're spending all your time doing practice, but you don't ever develop a foundational understanding, it's just hard to get the most out of that practice because you still just have big holes in your understanding. And then if you're on the other side and you're learning all this stuff and it's like, yeah, I have the understanding, but I don't know how to apply it. I don't know how to see it in practice because I didn't do enough practice. So you want a balanced approach, which is what we do. Next, forcing students to juggle multiple subjects. It's very common for companies to have a schedule that you juggle multiple subjects at a time. On Monday, you are doing a contracts lecture video. On Tuesday, you're doing torts multiple choice questions. On Wednesday, you're going back to contracts. On Thursday, you're picking up property. And again, juggling up to 3 subjects at a time. I personally don't think that that's the best method for establishing a strong understanding, being able to see patterns for these subjects. So we'll talk about our method in a bit, but yeah, I think that's a common issue is juggling multiple subjects. And then lastly, assigning closed book exams too early. When you get to bar prep, right, you're getting back to these subjects that you might not have seen in 2 years, 3 years. So imagine picking up a subject, watching a lecture video, getting reacclimated, and then the next day doing a closed book exam. The reality is that you are not ready to do a closed book exam, right? And so what happens? You do that closed book exam before you're ready, you get a low score, right? You're motivated through fear. Oh, got to pick it up. That's a 55 or that's a 2 or 3, right? Depending on your grading system. And it's like, oh, got to pick it up. And it just creates this negative momentum of like, I'm not doing well and I got to pick it up. As opposed to more open book exams of like, yeah, I learned contracts today. Tomorrow, I'm doing an open book exam where I have my prompt and I have my rules next to me. So if I don't remember the exact wordage of the rule, I can look it up real quick to make sure I'm still spotting the right issues or analyzing correctly. But even with our outlines, there's so much to gain in doing practice essays, and students still struggle with them heavily in issue spotting and properly analyzing, that taking out rule memorization at that phase is the most beneficial. All right, so yeah, we pretty much talked about it, but yeah, just to quickly run over it, Legally Fit's approach to these things, equal importance on learning and practice. We do one subject at a time, which I love, our students love. It just keeps it clean and simple. So let's say you have contracts, you have a day that's just for learning, right? Learn day. Pressure is off. This is where you're just getting reacclimated, getting these concepts down, getting the big picture, learning the folder system for that subject, etc. After you leave Learn Day, now you're in practice. And we split up our practice in multiple choice and essay days. So on essay day, you're doing nothing but essays for that subject. And by doing consecutive essays for that subject, you start to see patterns. Oh, on contract essays, this is what they like to do, or this is how this is typically analyzed, right? That you can only see when you're doing it in that concentrated manner. If you do one contracts essay today, another one 2 weeks later, another one 3 weeks later, there's so many other things you learn in between that it's harder to see those patterns. All right. And then the last day would be a full day of multiple choice for that subject. We do about a 70-30 split on open book practice versus closed book. Again, the only thing that having your outline by your side really is assisting with is memorization, right? The idea is that you do not have all those rules completely memorized. So let's get away from that notion that we do. And let's hyper focus on our issue spotting and the thoroughness of our analysis. And as we are ready, we will wean off of our outlines once those rules do get further cemented and we can recall them accurately. All right. And then lastly, with Legally Fit, we have essay, PT, and MBE formulas. And so for me, right, again, everything that I do is like, I want to do the hard work once and then be able to like use what I learned to make it easier the next time. So what I've created for myself and then for you all are formulas and strategies specifically for how to go through everything. So you're not just winging it every single time. So very specific, very intentional formulas for every portion of the exam. All right, next, support, why it matters. Bar prep companies also vary in the support they provide. Some push you straight into the deep end, others give you floaties, and a few offer hands-on lessons. Every student needs support. It is just a question of how much. Some of us in here are, in the mindset of like, yes, I'm looking for the support. I want the support. I need that extra support. Some of us are like, bravado and have that confidence of like, man, I just need the materials and get out of my way. Again, like I want to tell you, everybody needs some level of support. And so you just have to assess what it is and figure out if your company is providing that amount of it. But do know with how unique this test is, how challenging it is, and then just life also lifes, right? And presents problems and things, that support is definitely needed in this process. Common issues. Companies simply offer limited or no support, right? That's just the reality. A lot of companies are built off of just, here are your books, good luck. Legally Fit. We offer assistance with the day-to-day, with accountability and adjustments, with the day-to-day office hours. If you're having issues with the law or skills, you actually have an outlet to be able to get some of those questions answered, right? So, oh, this offer rule is not quite making sense to me, or 2207. Let me go in here and ask somebody some questions and see if I can get a better understanding. Otherwise, if you don't have something like office hours, right, or an outlet to get substantive questions answered, you're just left with those things piling up all throughout bar prep. Office hours can also help with skills as well. Our workshops also work with skills. So yes, you have assistance with your skill development as well. Also, it's not required, but it's optional for students to take part in our mentally fit forum. So when we're in our 10-week period, once a week, we hold a session that if students want to partake in, they can, where we basically just talk through like, what are the challenges that we're facing this week? What is everybody going through? And it's an opportunity for people to voice what their obstacles are, and then we start to address them and get over them. And then now everybody walks out feeling ready, empowered, handled that, got some insight, some guidance, and ready to get back to work. So our mentally fit forums, the people who love them absolutely love them. And again, it's just a way that you're going through this, grueling 10-week period, that you have an outlet of just like, man, I'm having a hard time just keeping up with the schedule, or I'm not quite understanding essays, and so I need a little bit more here, and things like that. Assistance with the accountability. You have live workshops and you have sparring partners. Within our program, we allow you to pair up with other bar prep students if you want for some additional support with accountability. It's kind of like your gym buddy, right? We're going to start at 8 a.m. We're going to text each other. We're going to quiz each other at the end of days, things like that. And then lastly, assistance with adjustments. So adjustments can happen, right? Because you had a death in the family, you got sick, you got behind on bar prep, and you need to figure out how to make now the best use of the time moving forward. What are the proper steps to make when I'm in that position? And again, if you're in a company that you have no access to anybody to do that, that is very difficult, and you're back into no man's land. Another reason why you might need to make adjustments is just the gained experience of going through bar prep. You might realize that certain things are working and certain things aren't, and you're trying to adjust. And you want to do that again with some guidance instead of on your own and possibly making a mistake or creating a problem. So even something as simple as like, you know what, like, I think I want to do a little bit less videos and more hypos. What would that look like? And should I do it? Talk to somebody that can guide you and assess if that makes sense for you. All right. So that is support. And those are the three things that you should consider the most when you are choosing your bar prep company. Again, materials, strategy, and support. All right. Let's start to wrap up here talking about Legally Fit experience and what to expect with our offerings. So in the exploring bar prep phase, right, which some of us may still be in, you can book a consultation call with us completely free, ability to get more questions asked and answered. You can request sample materials, gave you that link to get into our portal to see everything. And for students that want to, again, if you're trying to talk to people who took that program, we can actually connect you with some of our alumni who are always willing to talk to students about their experience. Early start options. If you are ready to go with Legally Fit for early start, which again, you could either pair with our 10-week course or not. If you want to start with us for early start, you can do one of two things. Take our Bar Taker Advantage course, or if you did already sign up for our bar prep, you can get your materials as early as now. You get immediate access. We don't gatekeep and wait to give you access until later. So you can sign up and get access to your materials immediately and just start going through them on your own. So those are your two early start options. Then we'll have orientation at some point for those that are taking our 10-week program, right? So if you are in February, orientation will be around early December. We're thinking about releasing it even earlier this year for people who have busy schedules, but it's typically in December, early December. And then for our students taking July, orientation won't be until May. But again, we might release it a little earlier this year. After orientation, this bottom part of this, right, little diagram is going to be your 10-week period. Your learn phase is 7 weeks where you're hyper-focused on learning the law and the skills. Then you have 1 week of assessing and strategizing on where you're at after those 7 weeks. And then you use that information from that assessment to make your attack plan. And we help you make your personalized attack plan for the last 2 weeks. And it's like, yep, time to tighten everything up, memorize, and go in and take the bar with confidence. So those are that's your 10-week program, right there. So your options are Bar Taker Advantage. Again, the description here is this is an extended study course designed to help you review the law, rebuild your skills, and get into bar exam shape before your 10-week period. It gives you a structured early start, no guessing as to what to do and when to do it. Very flexible schedule. If you're working or still in classes, you can do as little as 5 hours a week. But we also have a flex schedule that if you have more time, we give you the structure for what it looks like if you have 20 hours to commit. But it's as little as 5 hours to see a difference. And then again, our program is hell-bent on making sure that this is transferable progress, right? Every lesson, every workshop, practice question is actually something that's taking you into bar prep and taking off some of that pressure from your 10-week period, okay? This is definitely no busy work or passive review. Both of these programs are available in live and on demand. Here are the prices for them. You can get more information on this on the website as well. The live Bartaker Advantage is highlighted by the once a week live workshops that we do, where I run those workshops and I'm giving you intentional lessons and tips and tricks every single week in a digestible manner. Okay. You can also do on demand where you're just doing previous recordings of another class. And so, yeah, depends on your schedule and which one you prefer. Next, we have Legally Fit Bar Prep. So this is referring to that 10-week study period that you're going to take as you go into your actual bar exam that you're sitting for. And so the highlights are we offer the best of both worlds. We are a hybrid of a big box company where you get comprehensive, right, materials for every portion of the exam, but there's also that private tutor support feel as well, where you're getting more hands-on assistance, guidance, structure, and things like that. Okay. There is no private tutor, one-on-one aspect, but again, that's where the hybrid comes in, where the live workshops that we offer, the office hours that we offer, and in the event of emergencies where you need to call us and get some support, that is where that hybrid comes in. It's truly comprehensive. Our bar prep, right, it's always important for us to make sure students are aware that you'll have everything you need within Legally Fit to pass. You do not need to supplement it with anything else. We'll tell you what you need. We'll give you everything that you need to pass. And so, yes, this is a standalone course. Next, the Legally Fit difference, as we talked about, the hyper focus is on those three most important things: materials, strategies, and support. Okay. So here's the breakdown for Bar Prep Live versus on demand. Again, both are offered live. We actually, during that 10-week period, we're going to have live workshops 2 to 4 times a week. So a lot of time spent or just a lot more opportunity for those live workshops. The workshops for both programs typically range about 2 hours per workshop. So you're not in them all day. But they're really, really helpful and really useful for immediate feedback, for accountability and being engaged, having something to show up to. Again, having another outlet for questions. So yes, if you're considering live, that probably means that's going to be an environment that's really good for you. And I promise you will not be disappointed. And then on the other side, again, Bar Prep on demand. If you have anybody who is like, you know what, I just want the materials, give me the videos, I'll go through it myself. That option is available there as well. We are offering everybody early commit discounts. So you have until the end of September to take advantage of this. But as you see here, Bar Prep Live says $5,000. It's about $1,000 off right now at $39.95. Let's get to these early commit perks. So if you sign up between now and the end of September, you get $1,000 off of Bar Prep Live. You get immediate access to the materials. So if you are a 3L, you can now also use these materials to do really well in your bar tested courses that you're still taking. So if you're taking remedies, Crim Pro, right, community property and classes like that, that's now the dual value here. You can actually use that to finish law school strong. And then the last perk is that if you commit before September, we give you a special discount code for half off of Bartaker Advantage. And again, this is just our appreciation and our value of students who are taking early steps, committing to us early, and we want to make sure you have everything you need to pass. People who take Bar Taker Advantage plus our bar prep, so both programs, have a 93% pass rate. All right. So a really powerful combination to make sure you are passing on this next attempt. All right. How to receive early commit perks. So at the top, you have your QR code to sign up, right? I'm ready to go. I just needed the last little bit of information. You provided it. I'm ready to sign up. You can make your payment in full for bar prep, or you can break it down as little as $4.99 a month for an 8-month payment plan. And then there's also lower payment plans too, 2-month, 4-month, etc. So if anybody needs, it has special circumstances where they need something additional as far as payment plans, just reach out to us and we'll see if we can work something out with you. If you are interested, but you still have some follow-up questions, you can schedule a consultation call where you'll talk directly with me, right? And we'll walk through whatever your questions are that you might still have, regarding whether Legally Fit is the right program for you. Also, for all my students who have special circumstances, right? Maybe you're a repeat taker, and we just need to really have a custom schedule, custom course. Maybe you're working. Maybe you had a really, really low GPA. You really need some extra attention on how to start now and the best ways to do things. So anybody who's in those special circumstances, just know that, yeah, we also use these consultation calls to assess like how we can create custom courses for you to make sure you're successful. Okay. So yeah, those are your 2 QR codes. If you can't scan those, again, those links will be provided to you in a follow-up email. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and say thank you. If you want to follow us on social media, we have our social media handles there. If you need to email for any questions on logistics, signing up, onboarding, etc., you're going to email Monique. Her email is ma@legallyfitstudent.com. And yeah, thank you for all those that stayed into the very end. I see an overwhelming majority of us did. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. We'll be doing more sessions like this throughout the year that are focused on, what's important at that time of this bar prep journey. But today was all about what are the habits of passing students and what are the things to avoid, right? And then how do you properly choose your bar prep company? Okay. As always, I'm going to stick around for anybody that has any follow-up questions. So yeah, we will open up the floor to questions. Feel free to start putting your questions in the chat. And if anybody wants to verbalize their questions, you can, put in the chat, can you call on me or, yeah, let's just put call on me, and then I can add you to the webinar and unmute you so you can speak your question as well. But otherwise, thank you for joining, and I hope you guys have a great Friday and weekend. So yeah, I will stop sharing and let's open up the chat. All right. So let's work from the bottom here. But what if we are still waiting for the results to see if we passed or failed? That means we cannot get the discount. So Erica, you're waiting for your results. Got it. Yeah. So it is for committing now. Because yeah, your results would not come into November, so you'd be signing up later. So yes, the discount is now. I'll talk with Monique and see if there's something that we can do in those situations, so I can give that some thought. But yeah, the whole discount right now, the theme of it is people who are early committing. All right. Karen said, call on me. Okay, I'll call on you. Let me get through a few more of these text questions in here. When is the early bar prep scheduled to begin? Alex, are you asking for the July exam or the February? And I'll just give both. If you are taking the July exam, that live bar prep program is going to start in January. Okay, like about the second week of January. Bar Taker Advantage live for July starts in January. If you are taking Bar Taker on demand, we actually now allow you to do that at any time that you want to sign up. So we do not offer a live Bar Taker Advantage for February. So if you wanted Bar Taker Advantage, you would have to do the on demand, and you can start as early as today. And if you wanted to do Bar Taker on demand for July, you can start as early as today. So Bar Taker on demand, you can do whenever you want. The live program that we do for the July will start in January. Okay. So yeah, Alex, you said Feb 2026. So yeah, you can do it. You can start the on-demand version whenever you'd like. All right. You're welcome, Erica. You're welcome for considering. And then let's see some of the other questions. What are the 13 areas you mentioned, and what is the PT? So the 13 areas are the bar tested subjects that are out there: contracts, property, torts, remedies, crim pro, crim law, con law, civ pro. Depending on your jurisdiction, you'll have some then other classes like for California, for example, we have business associations, community property, wills and trust. For UBE jurisdictions, you have conflicts of law, you have family law, right? Administrative law. So there's a few variables based off of your jurisdiction, but yeah, that's an idea of your 13 subjects. And the PT is your performance test, which is essentially an opportunity for you to get what would be a task that you would likely get as a typical first year associate at a law firm. And it could be, I need you to write a memo. I need you to write a closing argument. I need you to write a persuasive memo or an objective one. I need you to write a client letter regarding this matter. So it's this pressure cooker of, it's kind of like your, first year of law school and you get to do that assignment and that paper. Sometimes very similar to that. But the challenge on the bar is that you have an hour and a half to like download, the task that you have to do and the situation you're dealing with. And then you have these cases for precedent. So really the challenge with PTs is just learning how to navigate that in that pressure cooker hour and a half. All right. Can you please give us an early start bar prep sample schedule? So yes, in the portal, we have a sample schedule for the actual bar prep, but you're asking one for the Bar Taker Advantage. So yeah, I don't mind sending you that. So let me just put that down. Bar Taker Advantage sample schedule. I can give everybody just a quick gist of how the schedule works, just to give you a little something right now immediately. The way Bar Taker Advantage works is that for the first 10 weeks of your access to Bar Taker Advantage, because your access lasts longer than just 10 weeks, but for the first 10 weeks, that's when we have our live workshops. Excuse me, for the first 12 weeks, is during that 12-week period, we have our live workshops. Each week of Bar Taker Advantage, we're focusing on one subject. So the first week of Bar Taker Advantage, it's the subject of that week is contracts. The next week, it's property. The next week, it's torts, so on and so forth. Now, in addition to you having that subject of the week, at the workshop, right, which is going to be on Fridays, Pacific Standard Time, 2:00 on Fridays, I have a curated, designed lesson or skill of the week that I want to introduce and that I want us to practice and exercise and get some feedback and some clarity on how to continue to work on this on your own to improve this particular skill. And then we use the subject of the week as the vehicle for that skill. So for example, week 1 is contracts, and I might decide that the skill of the week is I want us to learn within essay writing how to make judgment calls on when to make counter arguments and when not to. And then we're going to use contract law as the vehicle. Week 2, we're going to still talk about essays, but now we're going to talk about what not being conclusory looks like and actually having thorough analysis. And we're going to use now property as the vehicle for that, because that was a subject that you spent time throughout the week getting reacclimated with. So yes, that is the structure. And so I could just provide you the list of subjects that we'll cover and the order of them. The skills that I work on each week, I typically don't release because I'm kind of adjusting that in real time based off of my students in that group and what I'm seeing we're struggling with the most. But I can give you a list of the typical things that we do address during that time. All right. Um, let's see if I can find another question in here. And actually, I'll take a moment to go to Karen's question now, and then I'll go back to the chat afterwards. So, Karen, let me see if I can make you, all right, able to talk. Click on. Hmm. Okay, we actually, for this webinar, Karen, we might actually have not, we don't have that feature on to bring you in. Monique, are you seeing on your end an ability to allow Karen to speak?
I'm looking for it, but it definitely was selected as an option to have for this. But let me look too.
Okay. So yeah, in the meantime, I'll answer some more questions in the chat. And then Karen, if you want to start to type out that question, um, please feel free to do so. And then we'll see if we can actually still get you on and able to talk. All right. And then I think the chat is getting also a little diluted with people making comments and providing their thank yous for the session and all of that. So if you're still here and your question hasn't been answered, there's also, you should see on your side a Q&A button and section within the Zoom, and you can actually retype your question into that, so I can cleanly see, because am trying to sift through the other things as well. Yes, the recording will be available for this session. Define low GPA. So it's relative, Max, on what a low GPA is and whether you should start studying early, because it's relative to what school you went to, right? A 3.0 at an unaccredited law school is going to be different than, let's say, a 3.0 at USC, a Harvard, a Yale, right, et cetera. But all that to say, the general rule of thumb that I would use is that if you are 3.5 and above, right, you're in a solid position as far as like from your GPA perspective, there's no big gaps, right? There could still be some, but like that's on its face, it doesn't appear as though there is, at least not with the law. Maybe with your bar skills, there still could be. Um, so that's 3.5 and above. 3.0 and above, right, is like, okay, that's a solid place that, again, I don't think there's necessarily, you should start early. Again, I think everybody should, but I'm still not necessarily like, oh, you must and you have to. So when we're getting now below a 3.0, that is where I think it's now imperative that we start early. If we're 2.5 and above, right, I would still think it's different than 2.5 and below. But again, both scenarios, we should be figuring out how we're going to start early. And then the question is just like, how soon and how much? All right. Thank you, Ray. I think it's Rahena. I hope I'm saying that correctly. You'll have to, once we can speak back and forth, correct me if I'm wrong on that pronunciation, but thank you for that compliment on being much better. I appreciate you. Okay. Say it's the sample schedule. We saw that. Okay, we saw the discount one. We saw the bar prep one. All right. Karen said she sent her email to Monique. No worries. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're welcome. Everybody, you're so welcome. Like I said, I really enjoy, again, working with students, especially in this early phase. This is the part where we can like take all these fun early steps and take all this information and just have fun with this and like be strong students, strong academics, right? That we are respecting the opponent of this bar, right? Like that's one of the biggest issues that students have, right? We just don't respect how challenging this is. We know how challenging it is. We know what the pass rate is, but yet some of us just still wait until 10 weeks to start. Some of us still are not all in on bar prep. We didn't make our life conducive and work to bar prep. We tried to fit bar prep into our lives and know, like, to the best extent possible, we got to put our life on pause to just solely focus on this extremely difficult exam. And again, all these things, when they start to click and get into, flow, you have a great experience. I see the Q&A. Excuse me. How are the LSAT and the bar exam similar or different in terms of testing strategies? Thank you for your input and knowledge. You are welcome. And the LSAT and the bar exam are completely different. Let me start off with a few similarities. The few similarities is that they are both standardized tests. And I think that is one thing that people forget about the bar exam, because the bar exam is closer to what you saw in law school as far as, essays and multiple choice questions and things like that. So there's a lot of similarities. But the bar exam is still a standardized test that you have to learn that standardized test and strategize for that standardized test. For example, you could have a law school professor for property who gave you a 10-page fact pattern. That's a little excessive. Let's say a 5-page fact pattern, which that does happen, and 3 hours to write that essay. Well, on the bar exam, you have, depending on your jurisdiction, either 1 hour or 30-minute essays all the time, right? If you're in California, it's always 1 hour. If you're in UBE, it's always 30 minutes. So that in and of itself now is a new skill and strategy to simply just always be dealing with that setup. And you have to learn how to navigate that time frame. And it presents a different, challenge when you have that setup, right? As it's a different challenge when you have a 5-page fact pattern in 3 hours, right? Like reading comprehension is harder. There's so many more facts, so many more things to address, so many more issues to discuss. Fatigue is more of an issue, right? So everything has its pros and its cons, but the adjustment is what I think everybody needs to respect and adjust to. But yeah, as far as the differences, yeah, the LSAT, as we know, has nothing to do with the law, right? It's logic games and reading comprehension tests. There are some things that, again, transfer over as far as like, are you coachable? Can you like take this standardized test and prepare for it and learn it? But there's way more that's transferable from law school to bar prep than it is LSAT to law school. All right. And then, yeah, we talked about the 13 areas, answered that question. So answered and answered. All right. I mean, we still got a good amount of people in here. Again, super glad to see you guys staying to the end, finding the value in this. Are there any other questions while you all have me? All right. Any more questions? But yes, love the energy. Super excited for this year. Me and the team, we have so many, as always, uh, enhancements and upgrades to the program that we're excited to roll out. We have a really awesome portal, finding more ways to make that enjoyable for the day-to-day for students. So yeah, it is early days, but this is essentially the kickoff of the next bar prep cycle. And I think it's off to a good start. Loving the enthusiasm. So we're super excited to have you all. Is that another? Oh no, it's a different notification. But all right, I bought a little extra time to see if there was any other last questions that anybody had. It doesn't look like it. So with that said, I'll go ahead and officially conclude and end this session. Stay on the lookout for more sessions throughout the rest of this year. If you have, again, any questions, feel free to email or schedule a consultation call. But best of luck, everybody, whether you take Legally Fit or not. We truly are here rooting for your success. We hope you take away some valuable information that puts you in a position to pass. And just remember, you got this, right? Come up with a plan, work hard, and get it done. All right, y'all. Take care and talk to you soon.